All right, let's just dive right in. Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating and honestly pretty bold framework by author Karma Nayak called the Digital Ulgulan. It's a deep analysis that draws a direct, unbroken line from our family living rooms straight to the halls of political power, right down to a devastating industrial tragedy, tracking India's entire journey from 1947 all the way to 2026. To really wrap our heads around this heavy sociopolitical thesis, we're going to follow a clear micro to macro path. We'll start with society and consumerism, move into double standards in politics, look at historical scams, dig into the tragic case of HEC Ranchi, and finish up with the vision of the digital Ulgulan itself.
So, Part 1, Society and Consumerism.
Nayak's framework starts at the most fundamental level by drawing a massive contrast between two completely different ways of living. On one hand, you have Western hyper-individualism and consumerism, where we literally see divorce rates hitting 40 to 50%. On the flip side, the traditional Indian agricultural model. This one is rooted in shared duty and, get this, boasts a 98% lifetime loyalty rate. In this model, marriage isn't just another thing to consume. It's a deep, shared responsibility. And you know, there's a huge, totally unseen economic value to this traditional setup. If you actually sat down and priced out the unpaid labor of a traditional homemaker, childcare, cooking, managing the entire household, at Western market rates, you're looking at an equivalent of $3,000 to $4,000 a month. This internal care economy acts like a financial shield, literally protecting families from the crippling debt and loneliness we see spreading in market-driven cultures. But you might be wondering, is this kind of loyalty just some cultural rule we invented? Well, the author points out that it's actually deeply biological. Just look at nature. Penguins, wolves, cranes, they commit to a single partner for life just to ensure their species survives. The framework argues that when we abandon these innate natural values for hyper-consumerism, our whole foundational structure just kinda hollows out.
Which brings us to the macro level. Part 2, double standards in politics.
This hollowing out doesn't just stop at home. It scales all the way up to national politics. And it happens through something called psychological projection. Okay, picture that infamous chaotic public spat between Kangana-Rakhi and Rocky Sawant. They were fiercely attacking each other, right? But they were accusing the other of the exact same flaws and controversial pasts that they themselves possessed. It is a perfect, if a bit wild, metaphor for how our entire political system operates. Because when you apply this projection idea to governance, it is seriously eye-opening. For decades, India's major political parties have basically just mirrored each other. The current BJP era might loudly condemn the institutional control, the nepotism, or the heavy-handed tactics of the past Congress era. But then they turn around and use those exact same mechanisms. Central agency control, elite Z security, it's literally two sides of the same coin.
And that mirroring effect leads us directly into Part 3, the historical cycle of scams.
Because of this political mirroring, we are stuck in a continuous 79-year loop of systemic corruption. Nayak makes it crystal clear. This is absolutely not a single-party issue. It's framed more like an occupying syndicate that crosses all political lines. Whether you're looking at the Jeep scam under Nehru, Bofors under Rajiv Gandhi, 2G during the UPA, or electoral bonds under the NDA, the faces change, sure, but the exploitation of public resources, exactly the same. And the economic toll this syndicate takes is just staggering. Think about this. Back in 1947, the Indian rupee was nominally at par with the US dollar, 1-to-1. But by 2026, projections are pointing to 85, maybe even 90+ rupees to the dollar. That relentless, painful devaluation is the direct macroeconomic consequence of this ongoing systemic failure. So what's the actual burden on the average citizen? It's immense. By 2026, the author points out that India's total debt and internal liabilities are projected to explode to 200 lakh crore rupees. Yeah, you heard that right, 200 trillion rupees. That is a compounding, crushing weight on the everyday taxpayer, and it just gets completely swept under the rug in daily political theater. To see the real-world human impact of all those zeros, we have to look at Part 4, the Tragedy of HEC Ranchi. We really have to ground these massive numbers in empathy. When we talk about 12,000 to 15,000, we're talking about the indigenous and tribal families who were completely displaced from their ancestral lands back in 1958. We're talking about roughly 70,000 people who lost their forests and their farms, all because they were promised jobs and national development with the building of the Heavy Engineering Corporation. But tracking HEC from its Nehruvian foundation is just heartbreaking. It was once hailed as the mother of all industries, and it peaked in the 1980s with over 22,000 workers. But flash forward to today, it's effectively collapsing. There are less than 1,000 regular workers left, and chillingly, they have gone up to 2 full years without a single paycheck. 2 years! The sociological data points to a devastating reality on the ground right now. Highly skilled engineers, I'm talking about the exact same people who built the heavy machinery and launch pads for India's space missions, are now literally driving autos and selling samosas on the street just to feed their families. It is a profound betrayal of labor. But wait, here is the absolute, ultimate, heartbreaking irony in all of this. The descendants of those indigenous people who were displaced back in 1958, they never even got those promised jobs. And today, the failing corporation's unused land is being handed over to corporate real estate to build a smart city. Those original families are now being legally labeled as encroachers, and they're getting bulldozed for a second time. It's just unbelievable. So how do we actually break this endless cycle of displacement and projection? That brings us to our final section, the vision of digital Ulgulan. The text proposes the digital Ulgulan, essentially a digital revolution. It's a huge call to action, specifically asking the youth to see right through the political theater and just completely reject hyper-consumerism. The goal is to return to natural values, truly respect agricultural labor and secret traditions, and adopt a strictly scientific forensic approach to our education. All of this is designed to empower the marginalized populations, the Mulnivasi. Now, because this entire vision relies so heavily on deep historical, sociological, and genetic data, Nayak has actually made the foundational research super accessible. For anyone wanting to dive deeper, the digital books are out there for just 10 rupees in Hindi and 90 in English. It's basically a nominal contribution to directly fund this grassroots awareness movement. It really all boils down to this one core philosophy from the author. True development isn't just about building physical wealth or shiny corporate smart cities. Until a society actually abandons blind exploitation and moral decay for natural values and genuine labor, all that external wealth is completely meaningless. So I want to leave you with this final, really provocative question from the text. When you look beyond the daily political theater on your screens and you actually examine these historical cycles, ask yourself, are we truly an independent society? Or are we just being managed by a new syndicate? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning everything, and I'll catch you next time.